SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Discover Covington County Hospital's swing bed program, offering comprehensive care for patients transitioning from acute hospital care to home. With a focus on rehabilitation, we ensure a smooth journey back to your home environment. Choose Covington County Hospital, where your health care matters.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive.
How y'all doing? Scott Sands in for Richard Cross. Hope everybody got to bed at a reasonable hour last night without baseball, although, as I don't know about you, but I was up a little bit later than I had planned, waiting on election returns to come in. I finally went to bed before I saw results come in for Gulfport, but it looks like they finally counted the votes this morning, everything else coming in. We'll review some of those election results from overnight later this morning with Kelly Bennett, and probably set you up with at least some of the big ones this hour. There's no way we could go through this 200 some odd elections and that's what we would do for 3 hours, is just tell you the results. If there's an election that you cared about, chances are you looked it up this morning and I don't need to tell you. But that's not what we do on News Talk Radio. We'll at least go through some of the major results, see if there were any surprises along the way. We will also talk to State Senator Nicole Akins-Boyd this morning, and Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, who is the President's special envoy to Ukraine and Russia, will join us later this morning, and we'll get an update from him. I think the first question I'm going to ask is, did we know about the attack over the weekend? And if not, what does that mean? And I know some of you may be thinking to yourself, well, why do we care about Russia? Well, there are certainly some interesting implications, especially the lack of accountability and transparency for so much of our taxpayer money that's gone to Ukraine, including a trip by Senator Lindsey Graham over the weekend. I saw his hotel bill submitted, and again, when you see something on social media, sometimes I approach it skeptically and don't know if it's real or not. This seemed to be genuine from the government accounting office. His hotel bill, Lance, $410,000.
Ooh, man.
That's pretty good room service.
That's bringing the heat there, yeah.
If you're going to be in Kyiv.
He must have had a couple of rollaways moved in or something, you know.
Look, and what I couldn't tell from the bill is if that's how much his travel allowance was, and he hasn't submitted the actual bill yet, but it was an invoice from the hotel. So, you know, it might be like a Motel 6 where it's $70 for a couple of nights stay, but the allocation, anyway, was for $410,000.
I don't believe he stayed at a Motel 6, that's just my guessing.
I'm pretty sure you're right. You know, yesterday, Lance, somehow or another, we got on a tangent about Blood, Sweat, and Tears touring for the CIA in the Eastern Bloc, and Chuck Barris's birthday, and you were telling me about the documentary where
A Dangerous Mind.
He worked for the CIA. This morning, as I'm looking through news headlines, there was some highlights from the Diddy trial yesterday, in which we learned about another actor who was a CIA agent, or at least had CIA ties. You'll never guess who it is.
Who do we have here? Tom Hanks?
No. Canadian actor.
Okay. Ooh, Canadian actor. Mike Myers?
Michael Myers.
Really? I got that right?
You got that and you nailed it.
Man. Good
Mike
old-fashioned.
Myers apparently had CIA ties. Now, it doesn't seem like this was anything nefarious. I don't think he was actually spying. But apparently Diddy's attorney, while he was questioning Diddy's assistant, said that she had previously handled all unique requests for Mike Myers, another one of her clients. And she said she once set up a private and confidential tour of the CIA and corresponding with Secret Service agents and government officials. She worked for Harvey Weinstein as well. So
wow.
Mike Myers, she knew how to pick her bosses. Mike Myers visited the CIA headquarters in 2009, toured the CIA museum, had lunch with some agents, and told them that he was grateful for their service.
Oh.
So I think that
Powers, huh?
I think that's the extent of his involvement, his ties to the CIA. But still, we keep seeing these actors pop up with their ties, and you gotta wonder what the heck is going on.
Well, I'll say that I don't know if there was a better cohort in any movie than Elizabeth Hurley and Austin Powers, the original. So you got Mimi Rogers. She was the first one. Then you had, I believe it was Elizabeth Hurley in number 2. But man, those are two great sidekicks to have if you were Mike Myers.
Elizabeth Hurley could do no wrong.
No, none at all. Yeah.
As we look over the birthdays today, I'm not sure we have any other CIA ties, but a couple of great 90s R&B artists celebrating birthdays today. Al B. Sure, 57. Remember his song Night and Day? That was a good slow dancing song in high school.
Yeah, I don't remember that one.
El DeBarge, 64, Rhythm of the Night. You don't remember Night and Day?
I remember El DeBarge now. I remember good old El DeBarge.
You don't remember Al B. Sure, Night and Day?
I don't remember Al B. Sure, but El DeBarge is right down my alley, So that was my
Al B. Sure, Night and Day.
That was 80s.
That was what we used to call at St. John a belly rubbing song.
Belly rubbing. So that's when you had the nuns are like, no, move back.
You need 6 inches
balloon in front of you, in between you or something.
Some of the other birthdays today. Angelina Jolie is 50, and so is Russell Brand. Bar Raffaelli, she's that model that used to date Leonardo DiCaprio before she
turned 22,
aged out of his range. She's 40 today. Scott Wolf from Party of Five, he was Bailey, is 57 today.
Yeah, he still looks like 22, though, right?
Right. And Michelle Phillips from the Mamas and Papas, 81. So you probably know something about this guy. You strike me as a wrestling fan.
My 1937,
Gorilla Monsoon.
Oh, that goes way back. 37? I'm more of an 80s,
well, he was
early
born
90s.
in 37.
Oh, okay, I thought you were telling me about the early days of wrestling. Wow.
He was the voice of WWF in the 80s and teamed up with Brian the Brain Heenan.
I know the Heenan, he was very very popular.
So I recognize the name Gorilla Monsoon, but I have no idea what his voice sounds like, and I'm not sure if he ever...
Gorilla Monsoon, that's the one you're referring to? I don't remember him. Kamala, though, the guy, the Ugandan warrior, he's from South Haven, we're Senatobia. I'm sorry, he's from Senatobia. His name, his last name is Harris. His first name is Kamala. If you use his wrestling name, Kamala Harris.
First name is probably like Bob or something.
Yeah, it's not Kamala.
The kayfabe. Look, there's no better, and I don't follow wrestling today, but there was no better kayfabe than Mid-South wrestling in the 80s.
Oh, man. He just grew up with it, too. Memphis was kind of the mecca, and it sprinkled its way down to Jackson, and you just had a lot of wrestling going on, and it was the heyday of the entertainment side of it, too, where you kind of went from it was serious to where it really turned into much more of an event, it's kind of like a soap opera was going on, and then wrestling busted out. Kind of like a hockey game where there's a couple of brawls and then there's a hockey game that happens too.
Somebody shoots the puck around the ice. Jason at Starkville is on top of pop culture and let us know on the C-Spire text line that Elizabeth Hurley now dating Billy Ray Cyrus.
Oh wow! Now I like that. I like Billy Ray. I was a fan of his mullet back in the day. He really that's my Twitter pic. On my little circle thing. That's it's Billy Ray with the 1980s mullet, and he's wearing the wife beater T-shirt.
Now I have tried to find you on X. I don't think I'm following you. What's
Chupacabra Americano?
So that's why I couldn't find you.
I don't have followers, man. I try to stay away from that. I just use it for research. Yeah, I'm Chupacabra Americano, and I have a picture of Billy Ray. That's my.
That explains a lot.
Yes, sir.
That's why I can't find you. Scott Sands Media is my ex-handle.
Oh yeah, you're easy to find, man. Hey, don't forget today the Kingdom of Tonga achieved independence from within the British Commonwealth. This happened back in 1970. I don't know where Tonga is. Do you? Is that like? I'm about to hit it just so I can figure it out. But
I could not point to it on a globe, but I feel bad about that.
Yeah, South Pacific. That's what I thought it was. But it's I don't really want to say the word to start it out with because it may almost be a cuss word, but in Japanese or Polynesian. But they're also known as the Friendly Islands, the Kingdom of Tonga.
Okay.
Yeah. A friendly island. You want to visit a friendly island, right? Not the ones where Biden's uncle landed and got eaten or something.
33 years ago, 1992, young Elvis beat out chubby Elvis, and a nationwide vote for which Elvis should be featured on a U.S. postage stamp. Which really is quite disappointing. Chubby Elvis should have won, and chubby Elvis deserves more credit than he gets sometimes. There were a couple other things that happened on this day in history that I want to hit on next as we look at the weather. And there's not much sports today to cover, I don't believe. It's all about yesterday's election returns, and we'll get into those as well this morning. It's Mornings with Richard Cross, Scott Sands in on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
From the Venable Glass Traffic.
Things with Richard Cross here on Super Talk, Mississippi.
What else?
And always on the Super Talk app.
Streaming everywhere at supertalk.fm. It's Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands. Lance, I was just looking at the C Spire text line. Something apparently got heated last night during the sports talk.
I saw that. I was like, wow, man.
I don't know what that was all about, but man, somebody got their feathers ruffled.
He sure did. That was the first thing I saw when I came in. I was like, man, that got a little heated around 4:00 in the afternoon yesterday.
Yeah, somebody's still firing off the heat at like 2:30 this morning. It's like still mad about it. C Spire text line open at 601-879-4395. Some of the other things going on today in history that I took note of, and I don't know if you've got anything else other than Tongo to share, Lance. 129 years ago, in 1896, Henry Ford made a successful test run of his horseless carriage in Detroit. That would be the first car.
Well, that's, we can go with those types of that type of information because I have a good one for you. In 1937, the world's first shopping carts were introduced at Humpty Dumpty grocery store.
I wanted to get to that because I don't know why. I don't know what story I have read, what happened in my algorithm, but without fail, it seems like every week I get served some story on Facebook or X about how shopping carts reflect your personality. Do you return the carts at the grocery store or not? The people who just leave them sitting next to their car and then drive away versus the people who actually put them back in the corral apparently says a lot about your personality.
I try to take them back up to the front unless I'm way off in the parking lot and I need to drop it off in one of those little corral things. But yeah, I usually try to take it back up.
Yeah, I think there may be some validity to it. If you just leave it next to your car, you really don't care about other people, and you're demonstrating your laziness and your lack of respect for the people who work at the store. And if you take it back to the corral, or like if you do and you bring it back to the front of the store, then I think that shows that you respect the workers there, that you or are organized. I forget some of the personality traits that are apparently indicative of that, but I think far too much research has been done on the psychology of whether or not you return your shopping carts.
There's probably somebody's making a good living just studying that, and with your tax dollars, most likely.
Right. 43 years, 1982, and this may be a hot take. The best Star Trek movie of them all.
Oh, The Wrath of Khan. Come on.
Wrath of Khan was released. That's the one where Spock dies. Spoiler alert. And
you got the Fantasy Island guy. Khan. Khan has got the great mullet, and he's all jacked up. And it's like you don't really expect that until you see the movie, and then Fantasy Island is you got the long mullet and the bangs, and then he's all beefed up. You're like, man, I did not expect that. Even when you watch it for the 40th time, it still kind of throws you off. And then you got the little earworm things they use. They put him in there, No, oh my gosh, I can't think very well. What was his name? Chekhov or whatever that gets it first.
Yeah, I'm more of a Star Wars guy than a Star Trek guy as nerdiness goes. But I do remember in Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, that came along and just kind of really neutered the emotional punch of The Wrath of Khan. Spock should have, stayed dead or come back the way they did as images.
Yeah, you couldn't leave Nimoy out. You just couldn't leave Nimoy out.
No, that's true, but it just kind of killed the gut punch of Spock dying in 2 that it had.
Well, I grew up watching all these, the ones that came on WDBD Channel 40 with Captain Kirk's Stardate 4296. My dad loved that opening line, and when it would come on, he would like, Captain Kirk here, Stardate 4264, and then we'd watch. Even though black and white ones, that's what I started with. So, I've always enjoyed Star Trek from that perspective. It was unique and different. And when Star Wars came along, it was more movie-driven, so a very different kind of media. But I loved Star Trek. As a kid, that was the coolest thing ever. I mean, seeing the first Star Wars in the movie theater, man, I was eat up with it. I had to have everything, all the action figures, the Lego, everything, so I was eat up with the Star Wars as a kid.
So just maybe some validity to the shopping cart psychology. Someone on the C-Spire text line got a new home repair client because he saw me return someone else's cart at Lowe's.
Yeah, there you go.
So, maybe there is something to it. Quickly, a few other things. 41 years ago, 1984, the album Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen was released. And, of course, he and President Trump seem to be feuding at the moment, but doesn't negate the fact that that album had 7 top 10 singles. I'm on Fire, Glory Days, Dancing in the Dark, 7 weeks at the top of the charts. Certainly a big impact on my high school days. I was never a huge Springsteen fan. But certainly there was no rock star bigger in the mid-'80s.
Oh, no, he was huge.
And in 1989, Chinese army troops stormed Tiananmen Square in Beijing to try to crush the pro-democracy movement. Hundreds and maybe even thousands of people died. Hard to get a straight answer from China. No surprise on that subject. And they're in the news, obviously, for a couple of reasons right now. President Trump trying to restrict the number of Chinese students coming into universities in our country, and a story that I'll get to later this morning of a Chinese student trying to smuggle in a virus, a bacteria, to the University of Michigan, apparently for research purposes, but would have a huge impact on the agricultural industry and affect humans, animals, crops across the country if it got loose. I mean, a potential bigger bioterror attack than COVID-19 was. So I'll have some information on that coming up. The story on weather seems to be a mix of Canadian wildfire smoke and Saharan desert dust. So that's making for a nice haze all across the southeast and really much of the country today, but otherwise nice and warm this week.
Oh, yeah. 90s is what we're looking at from top to bottom of the state. And beautiful, beautiful Horn Lake, Mississippi is going to be 89. So you're in that ballpark today. South winds about 10 miles an hour, so it won't be too bad. You'll have a little breeze out there tonight around 72, partly cloudy. Looks like you may get some rain on Friday, though, in North Mississippi. And we'll look over in the Delta. Same kind of scenario. Thursday, you got a chance of showers between 1 and 2 o'clock. And mostly sunny today with about a 91 heat index. Values could be as high as 98 today, though. So if you're out in the Delta, be careful. Find some shade. Not much breeze. A little less than 5 miles an hour. And as far as the precipitation goes, it doesn't look like we're going to have any to worry about here for a couple of days. So, by Thursday, maybe Friday. But there are some clouds brewing out west of us, around Oklahoma, western Louisiana, eastern Texas. And then there's some stuff brewing in the Gulf, around Tallahassee, and then on the eastern seaboard. So, but it looks pretty good, smooth sailing, clear skies, at least in the deep south here for a couple of days.
It's June 4th, and they still have not turned on the air conditioning in my apartment building. Now,
you're in Ohio.
I'm up in Ohio. Yeah, I haven't necessarily needed it yet, but we've been pushing 90 the last couple of days, and this morning it's kind of muggy and warm in here. I've got the windows open, but again, there's not much of a breeze to cool things down, so it would be nice to have the comforts of home.
What is the weather?
Bill would be nice.
What is the weather looking like up there? I mean, we need to know how Sandsy gets to spend his day today.
It's hazy. It's going to be about, I think it's going to push 88, 89 degrees.
Okay, so about like North Mississippi today.
Yeah, it's kind of muggy. I think we've got some showers, which might affect my Thursday golf league coming through.
Yeah, what about
otherwise?
Yeah, pretty nice. May get a little drip around down here in Biloxi, but again, I just don't see the precipitation in the cloud cover. So something may pop up somewhere, but it looks pretty clear right now. Humidity 80% though, so breathing through a blanket.
First day in a long time that we haven't had a lot of sports to talk about. I was watching the U.S. women's national team play soccer last night against Jamaica. They won, I believe, 4-0. The NBA playoffs and Stanley Cup start tonight and tomorrow night. Panthers-Oilers game 1 tonight in the NHL, and Pacers-Thunder game 1 tomorrow night in the NBA. And tomorrow, Thursday, Coach O'Connor officially announced in Starkville at a big event. I'm sure that's going to be packed with Bulldog fans to welcome, to greet the coach.
Yeah. Oh, man, what a big hire. I'm sure the Bulldogs will be extremely excited. Should be a packed crowd, and I'm sure he'll have a lot of things to say. But, he's going to put a monkey wrench into the deep south here. Heck of a coach. Great hire. Very curious to see, the impact he has immediately with the recruiting. I think the state folks will be very, very happy with that hire. And he goes. Got to give
some kudos to the Mississippi State social media team. They've been putting out some video of Coach in Starkville on campus that's very theatrical. Somebody put a lot of effort into producing some very theatrical videos, dramatic videos introducing Coach O'Connor to the town. And I'm sure everybody will come out to support him. Very exciting news. You're a Bulldog baseball fan. That's tomorrow night. I think it's a free event for all the fans, all the students on campus at Mississippi State. We'll go over some of the results from yesterday's election, and Kelly Bennett will have the complete rundown for us after 8 o'clock this morning here on Super Talk Mississippi. Scott Sands in for Richard Cross.
From the SeabrookPaint.com.
Start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
Mornings with Richard Cross, Scott Sands. You can find me on X at Scott Sands Media. C-Spire text line open at 601-879-4395. Lance, I'm not sure how much you've looked over the election returns from yesterday. I don't really see any major surprises.
Vicksburg was a good one. Yeah.
Vicksburg, as expected, I think most of the incumbents won, which is generally the case. In Jackson, State Senator John Horn is moving his office to Jackson, won quite easily over Rodney DePriest and the other candidates in Jackson, 67% of the votes for that mayoral race. This one was probably one of the more contentious races in Gulfport, and I didn't see results when I went to bed a little after midnight last night, but Hugh Keating had claimed victory in time for the late-night newscasts. And it looks like he did win that race with about 54% of the vote. And I think the actual number is less than 800, 900 to replace Mayor Billy Hughes in Gulfport. And in Biloxi, another Republican mayoral candidate, Andrew Gillich, won re-election in that race. And I had to look this up to see if there was I grew up in the era of the Dixie Mafia.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a cousin of Mike Gillich from the Dixie Mafia days.
That's right.
I'm not making
Bobo has a lot of great stories, I'm sure. Yeah.
I'm sure. And I'm not making any ties of Fofo Gillich to the Dixie Mafia by any means.
He's a great guy, though. I mean, we've had him on a couple of times over the years I've been here, and fascinating. I've always been a reader, and I love the stories of the Dixie Mafia, and done as much digging as you possibly can. There's not a lot out there on it, but it really is a interesting storyline. Just the whole world of the Dixie Mafia.
There is a Dixie Mafia book that I used to have, and have lost it in one of my moves. And every once in a while, the story pops up on Forensic Files on A&E or one of the cable channels.
Yeah, you got the Sherry's. That was a big deal down there. And
there was a lot
going on.
a lot going on behind the scenes.
Yes, sir.
in Biloxi politics in the 70s and 80s.
You grew up down here, and the coast was such a different place before the casinos. It really was. It was such a transformation, and I'm sure a lot of folks really enjoyed. I remember as a kid going down to the beach a good bit before the casino, so it was a very different atmosphere. It's turned much more, I would say, bigger. In the tourism mindset, it was kind of small town, golfing and you had the Edgewater and all those old hotels, and they made way for the bigger stuff. But it definitely is it was wonderful to see the old coast. I didn't obviously was not around before the big hurricane and Camille, and so hearing the stories about the coast before Camille, and it took so long to recover that it's wonderful to see the growth and the vibrant economies of scale there, and the beautiful towns and cities really thriving and flourishing, because there was a while there that it really, the coast just kind of seemed very separate than Mississippi,
So it's very corporate now. I miss some of the small town charm.
Some of those older hotels were really cool, though.
Casinos.
Yeah. We'd go down to the Edgewater, and my grandfather, he was a car dealer and had a Chevy and Oldsmobile dealership in McGee, and I think that's where the big event was every year, and he loved going to the Edgewater because you had the golf course and the pool, and it was right there across from the beach, and it was one of those old hotels. It was kind of very unique and neat, and there was quite a few of those back in the day. So yeah, I miss that old unique small town feel, but yet at the same time, it's great to see the coast, really being such an economic engine that it is.
There's so much happening on the coast, and this is kind of fun. With the brand new Buc-ee's opening on Monday.
Man, yeah.
Have you seen
There'll be a line to Houston.
The Mississippi Aquarium put up some billboards, I think around the state, but certainly on the coast, that drew some attention, positive and negative. It's a picture of a cute little beaver. And the tagline on the billboard is something like, we heard you like beavers and clean restrooms.
The Buc-ee's folks, I keep seeing these stickers on the back of people's cars, apparently.
People love their Buc-ee's.
I've been to the one going to the beach. I can't remember what exit it is. And I remember pulling into it and saying, what am I doing going into this place? Didn't really need anything, but, it's kind of an event to go, and I walked around in there, and it was really cool. I was kind of blown away at how unique a place. I'm glad I visited one. I haven't been around one in several years, but I know the one that's going to be opened on the coast, or just opened. There's going to be a line in every direction getting in that place because people love their Buc-ee's.
I hear it's some of the best barbecue you could ever eat. The Buc-ee nuggets or chunks or whatever they're called are supposed to be fantastic. Some of the snack foods you can only get at Buc-ee's. I read the story months ago. Some industrious young man in college had the bright idea, because there still aren't a lot of Buc-ee's around the country. He lived close to one, and he would go to Buc-ee's and buy all the Buc-ee's exclusive foods and snacks and resell them at a markup online to Buc-ee's fans around the country.
Wow.
And I thought that was absolutely brilliant, because they have built this huge cult following.
Oh, it is.
And that beaver is so recognizable. There was a story this morning. They are suing somebody because Somebody appropriated the Buc-ee's beaver and put an AR-15 in his hand and some sort of pro-Second Amendment T-shirt or something that
Be careful.
obviously infringed upon copyrights.
When I first saw the Bucky word, I'd never heard of Bucky's before, and he had the little beaver head, and there was this cursive word under it that said Bucky's. I thought it said, at first I thought it was Busey's, it said B-U-C.
Oh, Gary Busey's got a place. How cool.
This ought to be crazy, man. So, then I was, educated after that. But yeah, I kept saying, what is this Busey's? I thought it might
one
be
of
a
those
play on Gary Busey.
This is one of those things like 95% of us won't care about, but the other 5% will care a lot. McDonald's bringing back the snack wrap.
What is that? Is that
there is finally a date to circle on your calendar. It's been a long time since I've had a snack wrap.
Yeah, I know. I like the McRib.
The snack wrap it's a soft tortilla with chicken tender and some lettuce and cheese.
Okay, I thought that's the one you were referring to.
That's really all it is. Yeah. I've been on this medication-assisted weight loss journey for about a year and a half now. It's been more than a year and a half since I've had any fast food other than a grilled chicken.
Really? A year and a half?
Yeah.
Wow. I'm proud of you, man. That's tough.
I've only had like 2 slices of real pizza in the last year and a half. I've had some cauliflower crust pizza, but I haven't gone to fast food in a year and a half. There's so many.
Now, is this like part of the diet, or is just no craving for it?
No craving. The craving's gone. I've been on tirzepatide, and so many weird cravings are gone, which, I could spend hours probably talking about the effects that it's had. But if you do care about the snack wrap, July 10th is when it will be back. They have been remarkably off the menu for more than a decade and discontinued because they weren't selling well, which I guess means it must be one of those things that you just don't miss until they're gone, because fans have been asking for them to be brought back for years. They are supposed to be a healthier option than just like a chicken sandwich, but I think that's only because relative to the caloric intake of like a bigger chicken sandwich.
Maybe tortilla, too, instead of the bread.
You got the tortilla instead of the bread, and it's one chicken tender instead of a big slab of a chicken breast. So they'll be available in spicy or ranch. Don't know how much they'll cost, but probably more expensive than they were in 2006. Coincidentally, Popeyes just announced that they're also introducing chicken wraps on their menu in 3 flavors. So this could be the first shot in some sort of big chicken snack wrap war. Something to certainly watch. I don't know.
Well, I thought I saw a commercial with McDonald's offering now chicken tenders. Like it was instead of just the nugget, it was like a long-looking chicken nugget. They called it a tender, though. I thought that's what I saw on TV. Maybe I'm wrong.
I'm sure it's just a longer version of the same nugget.
Yeah,
material.
I think it is. Yeah, and I think it comes with its own special dipping sauce. So that ought to get you in the door.
This is the 40th anniversary of Back to the Future this year, and I saw that the guitar that Michael J. Fox shreds at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance, it's a cherry red Gibson ES 345, has apparently been missing since 1985. So when the film came out, they lost track of the guitar, and now Gibson Guitars wants to find it. They've even made a "Have you seen this guitar?" poster with all the details. And all the stars from the film, including Michael J. Fox, have made a video pleading for its return. I don't know if you pull the audio. If not, don't worry about it. The guitar was rented from Norman's Rare Guitars in L.A. and returned after they were done with it, and nobody knows where it went after that, probably because nobody at the time in 1985 had any idea how big of a movie Back to the Future would come. It's most likely that somebody just bought the guitar from Norman's and there was no record of the sale. It's a 60-61 model Gibson, and historically accurate, of course, since the movie, at least that part of it, takes place in 1956.
I love a Gibson, though. They're just so nice. I wish I had one.
I've never learned to play the guitar, but the Gibson Guitar Factory is an amazing place to visit if you ever have a chance.
Yeah, I would take a scrap. You just tell me one of the broken ones. I'll take it.
Got your Mississippi lottery numbers coming up next, and State Senator Nicole Akins-Boyd joins us next hour as well. Mornings with Richard Cross and SuperTalk Mississippi.
From the Venable.
From Sumner to Summit to Summerall, Richard has something for you. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
All of your lottery numbers brought to you by the Mississippi Lottery here on Super Talk Mississippi. No jackpot winner yet in Lotto America as that jackpot grows to $37.32 million. Cash value at $16.72 million. The numbers from Monday night, 5, 7, 20, 28, 35. Starball 3, and the multiplier was 3. No jackpot winner in the Powerball yet either. That jackpot up to $30 million. Cash value, $13.4 million. And the Monday night numbers, 1, 7, 44, 57, 61, Powerball 21, and the multiplier 3. The jackpot's drawing for both Lotto America and the Powerball tonight. So that's all coming up. Double play numbers from Monday, 4, 25, 43, 44, 63, Powerball 4. And Lance, no jackpot winner yet in the Mega Millions either.
No, it's up to $223 million, climbing on up there, fairly respectable. Get about $99.4 million take-home pay, then pay some taxes on that. But the numbers from the Tuesday, June 3rd drawing, 16, 24, 29, 36, 45, Mega Ball of 13. And so, yeah, that's a pretty big chunk there if you're ready for it. And the Mississippi Match 5, it's up to $1.2 million, folks. Make sure you're getting your ticket. I project a winner before long.
It's got to come soon.
Yes.
It's the highest prize ever offered since the game launched in 2021.
Yeah, several hundred thousand.
Shattered the previous jackpot by like $300,000. That was a couple of years ago in 2023. Drawings are every night in the Mississippi Match 5 at 9:30 Central. Tickets are just $2. And if you want to boost your non-jackpot winnings, add the $1 multiplier feature. Get your ticket today at any authorized Mississippi Lottery retailer statewide. And you can find details on how to play or to check the winning numbers at mslottery.com. Yesterday we told you the new games are out for June. The $1 double doubler. It's a fast, fun game where matching 3 prize amounts could win you up to $5,000 and scratch off the prize level area. You might double or even quadruple your prize there. That's new game number 1. New game number 2 is the $5 Gold Rush. Reveal an axe to win instantly. A gold bar stack to multiply your prize by 5 or hit the bonus spot with a money stack for an extra instant win. $100,000 top prize and the $5 Gold Rush. And if you want to play big, the third new game for June with the Mississippi Lottery is the $500,000 Extreme Cash. It's a $20 game. Offers up to $500,000 in top prizes, prize multipliers, instant cash symbols, 5 bonus spots to boost your chances, and more. And don't forget not to toss those non-winning tickets. Enter them into the Mississippi Lottery second chance drawing for another shot at the game's top prizes once the game ends. mslottery.com has all the info on these 3 new games out for June. $1 double doubler, $5 Gold Rush, and the $500,000 Extreme Cash game, all brand new from the Mississippi Lottery.
Wow. You covered that very nicely, man. That's good stuff. Cash 4 winners, $2,600. Players from Brookhaven and Slidell, Louisiana, each won on tickets from A1 Stop in Brookhaven and Circle K Store, a lot of numbers in Waveland. And then Cash Pop winners of Macomb Man won $1,000 on a ticket from Market Max Macomb and Macomb, and a Brandon man won $2,500 on a ticket from Sam's Exxon in Flowood.
Man, I love that Circle K Store 2701704. That's my favorite.
Yeah, if you owned all of the different numbered stores, Circle K, you're a billionaire because there are apparently a lot of them.
Match 5 winners, players from Brookhaven, Panola, Indianola, Isola, Pascagoula, and Jackson. Each scored $800 on tickets from various stores in those cities, including the Blue Sky, Murphy Oil, Ruby's Food Mart, Murphy Oil, Indianola, Plaza, Pascagoula and Fast Lane and Jackson and more. Got kind of confused. There were so many Match 5 winners there.
Well, then you have Isola in there, too. I hadn't seen that one in a while. So,
players from Starkville and Vicksburg each won $1,000 on tickets from a Sprint Mart in Starkville and a tobacco store in Vicksburg.
Well, a Lotto America winner, not the big money, but a New Bern, Alabama woman won $1,000 on a ticket from the Tumsuba, Texaco in Tumsuba. And you also had the $5 Super Cash Word winner. And that is an Oxford man who put $5,000 in his pocket on a ticket from the Super C Discount Tobacco in Tupelo.
Nice. Coffeyville man won $10,000 on a ticket from Scott Petroleum Store in Grenada. That's the $10 Red Hot Cash winner. The 200X Cash Blitz winner. The Jonesboro man won $1,000 on a ticket from Sprint Mart in Columbus. And a Collins woman won $5,000 on a ticket from D&B Discount Tobacco in Collins. That's the 100 million extravaganza from the Mississippi Lottery. All of the information at mslottery.com. We got a lot of feedback, Lance, on the snack wrap coming back to McDonald's. Some people miss the Arch Deluxe, the McDLT. I don't remember the Arch Deluxe. Yeah. The McDLT was a good burger, man.
I'm still honestly, I'm one of those. I love the McMuffin with the sausage.
That's the best.
Yeah, and the pancakes are good. But then I will always go to the McRib when the McRib season is upon us. I love
somebody says the McDonald's chicken tender is an actual chicken tender. Doesn't taste anything like the chicken nugget.
Gotcha. I saw the
they just need to
really
cook it a little longer to have more crispy crust.
There we go.
And apparently the creamy chili sauce is on point. So
yeah, they have its own special dipping sauce for it. So rolling out the
everybody's
red carpet.
Snack wrap is back. Now bring back the McDLT. I could get on board with that. That was a good burger. Elon Musk and the Trump administration heat up their feud a little bit. I'll tell you the latest in that saga next on SuperTalk Mississippi.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
Morning, partner. The sun is up, the coffee is on, and you're starting your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
This hour of Mornings with Richard Cross brought to you by MWG Employer Services. Running a business is tough, and if you're struggling with HR, benefits, and payroll, you're not alone, and that's where MWG Employer Services comes in. They can provide a full range of employer services and a custom plan that fits you and your needs. Call today, 601-206-7966, or go to MWGEmployerServices.com. Scott Sands in for Richard this week. He'll be back on Monday, and Lance may have seen a little frustration from me during the break. I am locked out of a couple of my accounts and can't remember what the hell my password is. There is no more frustrating feeling than needing access to something and can't remember what combination of email addresses and passwords you may have used when you set up that account. So that's
probably one of those old ones too that's been around for a bit.
Oh, it's one of the ones that I've never changed. It's not really anything important. I just need to see it today, and it locked me out and won't let me get back in. It's probably something simple, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or something dumb like that.
One of the don't use this password. Right. They'll have those about once a year. Like, these are the worst passwords to use. That's one of yours, I bet. You could just go look.
And I have 2 or 3 email accounts that I use to register for various accounts because I know that I'll get spammed when that email gets sold. So it's one of those dummy email accounts that I don't actually use for real email, and I just can't remember which one that is either, nor the password to get into it if I need to reset the password. It's been a very frustrating morning for something that I don't really need. I may just drop it altogether. State Senator Nicole Akins-Boyd will join us in studio this hour, and we've got a lot to talk with her about, including the opioid settlement for the state, something that I care deeply about, and we'll discuss how that could be used to help the people of Mississippi. But I did want to update, as I have done every morning this week, and for the days I have filled in for Gerard and Richard on the Big Beautiful Bill progress. But first, this tweet about the One Beautiful Bill from Marjorie Taylor Greene yesterday. I don't know if you saw this, Lance. Yesterday morning, right after the show, I believe, Marjorie Taylor Greene on X said, and this is with regards to the database that the Big Beautiful Bill creates that I did talk about yesterday. She said on X, in full transparency, I did not know about this section on pages 278, 279 of the One Big Beautiful Bill that strips states of the right to make laws or regulate artificial intelligence for 10 years. I am adamantly opposed to this, and it's a violation of states' rights, and I would have voted no if I had known this was in there. Okay, first of all,
don't you have
Marjorie
staffers
Taylor
to take care of that for you?
You've got one job. Read the bill. This is one of the problems we've got in Congress right now is that they're putting through this massive legislation on a regular basis, thousands of pages that nobody in Congress is actually reading.
Well, I mean, again, you have staffers. I worked on the Hill. That's their job is to take each bill and sift through it. Now with AI, you plug it in and it finds all the goodies for you. I mean, there's no excuse.
Tell me the highlights.
Yeah, there's no excuse for that kind of stupidity from a leader. And I'm a fan of hers at times, but that's totally her fault, and no way that I have any sympathy for somebody that didn't do their job when that's what you're hired to do.
She went on next to say we have no idea what AI will be capable of in the next 10 years. Giving it free rein and tying states' hands is potentially dangerous. Needs to be stripped out in the Senate when the One Big Beautiful Bill comes back to the House for approval after Senate changes. I will not vote for it with this in it. We should be reducing federal power and preserving state power, not the other way around, especially with rapidly developing AI that even the experts warn they have no idea what it may be capable of. And I don't always agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene, but she's right about a 10-year plan on artificial intelligence, and there should be some caps and restrictions and regulations probably on artificial intelligence. But again, read the bill before you vote on it. It's you don't have to read every word, but you should know what's in there at least before you vote on it lockstep with everybody else.
Yeah, well,
and I guarantee you she's not the only one who didn't read it.
Sure. Well, and the other side, it's not like the Willow, Google Willow didn't get shut down for solving a problem that took, would have taken mankind, 55,000 years. It did it in a handful of seconds. And they were so convinced that there's no way that Willow could have gotten the information from this world, that it had to be surfing multiple dimensions to get it. And they went, all right, let's shut it down. So, yeah, I think we probably need to have a few little safeguards in place here for AI. Yeah.
I told you Monday I went to go see Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. It's actually part of the plot line of artificial intelligence essentially dominating the world. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much time I'll have on this, but I think many of us knew that this breakup would come, but it's still somewhat surprising to see it play out in real time. Elon Musk, who was the toast of the GOP for months with budget-cutting efforts in DOGE, had to turn the tables on the White House yesterday, denouncing the Big Beautiful Bill as, this is a quote, disgusting abomination. You know you did wrong, he told supporters of the measure who voted for the bill in the House. He went on to say in a series of posts on X, Congress is making America bankrupt. It will massively increase the already gigantic budget deficit and burden Americans with crushingly unsustainable debt. And there is speculation, and you can believe which numbers you want to believe about how much the Big Beautiful Bill would add to the deficit. The national debt, by some numbers, would top $50 trillion under this plan. And those are the numbers that were offered up by Republicans, not the Congressional Budget Office. Now, some of that money may be offset with revenue increases as the economy continues to improve under President Trump. House Speaker Mike Johnson bluntly told reporters in response that Musk was dead wrong. For him to come out and pan the whole bill is just very disappointing, very surprising. I just deeply regret that he's made this mistake. At the White House, they're trying to downplay the criticism from Elon Musk, and I don't believe, I follow the president on Truth Social, I haven't seen him say anything about Elon Musk, especially negatively. Caroline Leavitt yesterday in her press briefing said the president already knows where Elon Musk stood on this bill. It doesn't change the president's opinion. This is one big, beautiful bill, and he is sticking to it. Some congressmen obviously think that he's right. Thomas Massey, Warren Davidson, Ron Johnson, Rand Paul are among some of the Republican members of the Senate and the House who are saying, yeah, we need to do more to cut spending. And there is a bill that would cut about $9 billion, which is a good start, I guess, but it's not nearly enough. I think many of us share in Elon Musk's frustration. Adding to the national debt, which is already, I think, $36 trillion without any sort of meaningless reform is pretty reckless. But despite its flaws, the Trump Tax Cuts and Jobs Act needed to be extended. They expire this year. We lower the individual and corporate tax rates, which will boost economic growth. And I think that's vital to keeping America competitive. It encourages investment, puts more money in our pockets. But at the end of the day, the tax cuts must be paired with some sort of spending restraint to avoid making the deficit and debt even worse, which this bill, I think, essentially ignores. And the Republican rescission bill, which is a step in the right direction, is pretty inadequate. It not only trims a fraction of the federal budget and doesn't address structural overspending in entitlements, defense, discretionary programs. For example, in the rescission bill, which I've gone through most of, admittedly using AI, but I have gone through most of it, unlike probably some members of Congress, it rescinds unspent COVID-era funds, which is fine, but I think we need bolder cuts. I think, a 5, 10, 15% across-the-board cut to non-essential programs would be a serious signal of more financial discipline. Senator Rand Paul has said he's going to vote no. President Trump has gone after Rand Paul, saying he votes no to everything. Maybe he's still upset over how badly President Trump trounced him in the debate the two of them were in. But Rand Paul has yet to put out a better program, a better bill. If you're going to criticize it, show me what you got. We can't compare and contrast the two rescissions, the cuts, if you're not going to put forth your own plan. You just can't lob grenades from the sideline if you're not going to offer an alternative. At the end of the session, we've got to make bigger cuts. The rescission bill that the GOP has put forth, good start. Let's get that done. But we need to continue to urge Congress to codify some of the cuts and recommendations of DOGE and to become more fiscally responsible with our money. I'll talk about this some more. This is not the end of the story. We're going to see this debate playing out on social media and in the press over the next few days as the Senate continues to debate the bill and hopefully get it to the president's desk before July 4th. Scott Sands in for Richard Cross. Look forward to meeting State Senator Nicole Akins-Boyd next here on Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
From the Vettable Glass Traffic.
No matter where you're from, Abbeville, Batesville, DeIberville, or any other ville in the SIP, you're starting your day off right. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Sweet Jane, oh, sweet, sweet Jane, waiting for Jimmy down in the alley.
Thank you so much for letting me be here to fill in for Richard Cross this morning. My name is Scott Sands. You can find me on X, Scott Sands Media. Stream us everywhere at supertalk.fm. State Senator Nicole Akins-Boyd is joining us now. It's great to meet you. Thanks for coming in today.
Delighted to be in today.
So I saw that you're an Oxford girl, and you also went to Mississippi State, so you're really kind of hedging your bets every sports season.
Well, I grew up in Oxford and learned quickly to yell hotty toddy growing up in Oxford, but I did go to undergraduate at Mississippi State and enjoyed it there. But I have really enjoyed being home in Oxford and getting to yell at all those great games. We had some great ones this weekend, some close calls, and so being in Oxford's always a great time in the spring.
Where do your loyalties lie during the Egg Bowl? There is no question. I represent the University of Mississippi. It is in my district, so I have to yell hotty toddy. And my husband, who, just to make this more interesting, my husband is a former Mississippi State football player, and he actually is one of the orthopedists
for the University of Mississippi. So anyway, that works with the teams, and he always makes sure that he is rooting for his players that are on the field. So just to make it all the more interesting.
That's like a Game of Thrones situation.
Yeah. We always are yelling for our Mississippi teams, though, when they're not playing with each other.
You know, it's been weird for me cheering for the Mississippi teams this past weekend in baseball because I'm an Alabama Crimson Tide guy.
Oh.
But I know, right? But I got to tell you, I have become a Lane Kiffin fan. I was not a fan of Lane when he was Alabama's OC. And I lived in Hattiesburg for quite a few years. So I love to see Southern Miss doing well. It was a great weekend to watch sports. Unfortunate ending, but I will be cheering for the Tide whenever they play a Mississippi school.
I don't know if we can forgive you for that. So
I know. Well, this is a much shorter conversation than I expected to have. Look, Senator, I wanted to talk with you about the opioid settlement money and the state, and we'll get to that in a minute, but let's just start with the obvious, the special session last week. Walk us through from your perspective what happened to the special session. I know that you were one of the people in the state Senate who were upset that the House did their job and just kind of left town. Creating maybe a little bit of tension there between the two chambers. But take us behind the scenes on the Senate action to get the budget done.
Well, the House and the Senate have been working together since we left, and as I say, we had to come back for summer school because we didn't quite get the job done. And so they had been working behind the scenes. And so we, and I've heard all these various things about transparency among the members and all of that. The Senate received the proposed finalized budget the Sunday before we came in. So we had ample time to really look at it, ask questions. I was calling people on the holiday and Memorial Day, asking particular questions about budgets and all of that. So we had a little bit more time to work. We had some pretty good time to kind of ask our questions and then call state agencies to find out, different provisions and stuff like that. So, passing the budget and passing the legislature, they always say it's a sausage-making process, and it is. We have a budget now. We have a budget that is a conservative budget because we don't know what's going to happen with the federal level. It is passed. It is done. And we have to move forward. There were some things and some cuts in there that I was not particularly thrilled about, particularly is the chair of universities and colleges. I don't like to see, I wanted to see more money in there for them, particularly in regards to maintenance and building and projects and things like that. But that was not the case this year. And we will come back and we will fight next year to try to get those done. But we did pass a conservative budget. We made sure that, that we're going to be in good shape financially. Despite whatever happens in Washington with federal cuts and different things like that. And so it's the process. We need to always work together. It doesn't benefit the taxpayers for the Senate and the House to be fighting with each other. That's a lose for the taxpayer, and that's a lose for the citizens. So I think we are work. And also, too, though, I will say, too, I'm not afraid for us to have disagreements. I think that winds up in a better.
That's healthy.
I think it is, too. And I think we're too afraid of that sometimes right now, is to have these healthy debates. And we did. We had a very robust, healthy debate. Are you going to fund local projects? Or are you not going to fund local projects? Are you going to fund state projects? Or are you not? And so this is where we are. And we're moving forward. So I'm sure there will be some. I'm in the Legislative Budget Committee. And I think you will see some healthy debate again coming in September. And I think that's great. That's what we should be doing here.
What I'm hearing from some of your colleagues are the frustrations that the executive branch, that the governor has perhaps too much power over the purse. Do you see that uneven balance in the power over budgeting in the governor's office?
Well, now let me say this. We handed the governor the power of the purse when we left without a budget. and required him to bring us back in. We gave the governor the power of the purse. And so
and the push.
So if my colleagues don't like that, we have to own responsibility that we did this. And so if they don't want to do it again, then we've got to make sure we work together and get that budget before we leave.
When it comes to spending, some states are looking at a state version of the RAINS Act. Is that something Mississippi is considering? Would you advocate for a RAINS Act, and maybe explain what the RAINS Act is for people when it comes to how Mississippi might approach it?
I think it's way too early, and you can probably look at some more clarity in that. I think that there's lots of talks going around on different things all the way around, and I'm not ready to delve off into all the different ideas that people have on these right now.
Yeah, I think from what I've seen in other states that it certainly provides for more accountability and transparency on large expenditures in the states that have followed through with the RAINS Act. And even at the federal level, if Congress is able to get this done, just requiring about more congressional approval for major regulations that impact business owners in the state or on a national level.
Yeah, I think, look, transparency, and I've heard there's various things been said about the Senate non-transparent. Look, when we came into office in 2020, the Senate has been more than transparent. Our hearings are all publicly available, and I'll remind the public on YouTube. Our budget hearings are all available on the legislative website, which is on YouTube. And all of our committee hearings and most of our subcommittee hearings are all available on YouTube. And so I think there were some speakers earlier this week that said, oh, the Senate's not transparent. The Senate is very transparent, and we have all of our committee meetings online so you can hear them. And you can watch them, and you can see the questions being asked and all of that. And I encourage the public to go do that. So I have a lot of constituents who actually do this. And I think we need more transparency in the state, period, from all of our boards and commissions and all of that. I've proposed legislation for a couple of years that we make sure that every state agency board is online so the public can watch it, and that they know what's going on in the state government, and they don't have to come down to Jackson or wherever it is to go sit in those board meetings. They can be public for the public to hear. And that is easy technology to do now, and it doesn't cost a lot.
Someone wants to know, and you may not know the answer to this, when the Highway 7 construction from Oxford to the 9-7 roundabout will begin. That apparently is a little bit of a traffic snafu in the area.
It's a traffic snafu. Look, we were so blessed to receive last year in the legislative appropriation the money to complete the 4-laning of Highway 7 from the 7 and 9 split. And I am told that we should be able to start that by the end of the year is kind of my latest update on that. And they've had some issues with moving some utilities and a couple of things like that. But that is when I'm told it should start. So we've got some major construction there going on right now off of Highway 7 into Oxford. So we've got a couple of major construction projects already kind of in the works in that. So, but hopefully that 9-7 split to the bridge will start maybe at the end of the year.
If it's not done by football season, you could put some big screen TVs up there for everybody stuck in traffic to watch the games.
That might be what we. Yeah, I have a very
massive tailgate party right there on the highway.
Absolutely, that'd be a great idea.
I want to get into the opioid settlement money next and the opioid crisis in the state. State Senator Nicole Akins-Boyd here on Mornings with Richard Cross. Scott Sands in SuperTalk, Mississippi.
This couple, they got married, so where they did agree. This couple, they got married, so why not you and me? Oh, why not you and me? Oh, why not you and me? That's getting there, that's getting more.
From
from thesebrettpaint.com.
Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
All right, now to the important stuff.
Your VIP pass to hear what the most influential Mississippians are talking about.
This is very important. Huge news.
Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
My name is Scott Sands. Flattered to be invited to guest host for Richard here on Super Talk, Mississippi. Before we get back to our guest, I couldn't help but notice, I think somebody is flirting with Lance on the C Spire text line.
It happens every now and again. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Somebody just being nice.
Very desirable man.
No,
I
think somebody just being nice. That's all. But thank you. Thanks for the compliments. I appreciate them. Keep them coming.
State Senator Nicole Akins-Boyd is joining us on Super Talk Mississippi. The story that caught my attention about you, and it's nice to meet you, is what's happening with the opioid settlement in the state of Mississippi. I think the state is getting about $260 million in settlement money, and you've been the lead sponsor of at least one bill. So let's just start. What's motivated you to take a leadership role on this particular issue?
Well, this is a bill that I was happy to work with and there was a companion bill in the House, and as you know, in our process in the legislature, it's either a House bill or a Senate bill. And so this happened to be a Senate bill, but I worked very closely with House leadership in this. The chairman of the Public Health Committee, Sam Creekmore, in helping how we were going to structure these settlement monies. I have a little bit of experience with this. I worked a number of years ago in the state attorney general's office when we had the tobacco settlement. And so I'm very familiar with settlement dollars and how those need to be reported and what you need to do to make sure that you are in compliance with the court orders and that. And then also, too, I have been chairing a Women, Children's, and Families Committee study group for the Senate for the last several years now. And so opioid issues constantly comes up in those particular issues. I also live in a university community, and we have been extremely impacted by the opioid crisis within this state and this nation. And so, I mean, it is we were thrilled to see the Attorney General be one of the first states to really go after these companies and look at their predatory practices of what they, were doing, and really go after them. So we have a settlement now, and $259 million will be looked at through this committee over the next few years. And so we established what we did is a 15-person council, kind of advisory council that will advise the legislature on how these expenditures need to be made. And on this committee, too, we also did 22 larger advisory council members to that council because opioid addiction is a complex issue. I understand you have a great deal of experience with this, too, Scott, so maybe I need to be interviewing you on this issue.
It's interesting. So I am the chairman of the board for the Sheriff's Office Drug Abuse Response Team in Lucas County, where I live, and the state of Ohio, where I am, has taken a unique approach, and I couldn't find a program like the DART unit in Mississippi. Maybe there is one in a county or a city somewhere, but the DART unit and in Wood County, which is Bowling Green, Ohio, Cincinnati, Columbus, several other cities across Ohio have these interdiction teams that are made up of law enforcement. But when they go out to respond to an overdose, they're not arresting the drug user. They're taking them in to get treatment. They're taking them to one of the available mental health facility beds that has a bed available, and then these sheriff's deputies stay with those clients through the entire process. They're with them almost as a sponsor to make sure that they pursue treatment and are there on call, in some cases 24 hours a day. And that not only, I think, builds ties and trust with law enforcement, but really shows how important it is to stop the addiction, to stop the problem in the state where it begins, and that's with the users and with mental health problems in the state, and not just throwing them in jail where they're likely to relapse and continue to use drugs, even in jail in some cases.
Well, and that's exactly what we want to make sure that we're looking at programs just like that across the state. We have law enforcement that is on actually that voting member board, and then we have advisors to that that can do programs like that. One of the things I've looked at.
I saw one critic of the advisory council that, and maybe this is wrong, there was nobody on the council that actually has any lived experience with addiction. Is that true?
Well, there's nobody that is designated by that tag as a voting member. However, the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the speaker of the House all have appointees to these committees, and they're kind of open-ended as to who those individuals can be. So, and then we also have some other individuals on there. So, I think you may see by the time that these appointees are made, you may have some people that definitely have some lived experiences. I think we may already have some that have some lived experiences with this, but we do have members of the advisory committee that definitely have some lived experiences with this. So, I think that's incredibly important, is to kind of hear from those that are in recovery. But I also think you've got to look at this multifaceted, because one of the things that I've worked really hard with over the last few years is CPS. And the number of children that are coming into CPS because of opioid addiction has dramatically increased. And so, this is an issue that affects everything. And
There are so many tentacles in the opioid problem, and we're, in some cases, seeing opioid overdoses decline, but the bigger problem becomes something like fentanyl. And as the border is more secure and there are fewer drugs coming into to the country, hopefully that will help to a certain extent. But addiction is a serious disease, and if you want to use the drugs, you're going to find the drugs. And this crisis has not only touched, as you said, CPS and children, senior citizens, the housing system, the judicial system, medical care, mental health, all have a role to play in treating the crisis.
They do. And you talked about our senior citizens. We see senior citizens with addiction issues, but we also see 2.5 million grandparents are raising their children now just because of drug addictions of those parents. That's an incredible figure that you're thinking and talking about. And you mentioned fentanyl. We see right now, particularly in a university committee, 70% of all of our opioid deaths are because of fentanyl. Now, we hope as our borders continue that with the president cracking down on our open borders, that we see less fentanyl that is coming across the borders, because we know that has been a tremendous problem. And
it's being infused in everything.
Absolutely.
From counterfeit drugs to heroin and other opioids. In some cases, it's even being infused with marijuana on the black market, which is why some states have moved to legalize marijuana, just simply to make that drug safer, if you know what you're buying, rather than getting it on the streets.
Well, you see it infused absolutely into everything. And so we've taken a broad spectrum with our advisory council, looking at all of those things, looking at our law enforcement, obviously. I'm greatly concerned right now because I hear some of the federal cuts that are coming down may affect our drug courts. And so, and that's where you see really the impact of the bad decision making and the addiction issues that are involved with this. I was talking with our mental health centers, our community mental health centers last week, and they're starting to feel the pain of those cuts and what that's going to do for those treatment issues and stuff like that. So we're very hopeful that...
And all of those agencies need to play a role in treating the crisis. Drug courts need to provide an option to addicts who come before the judges to seek treatment rather than going to jail. Emergency rooms should, in some cases, perhaps be required to report this to get them into treatment with units available, like the DART unit in Lucas County or some of the other interdiction teams with law enforcement. And rather than punish them, punish the users, get them the help that they need and follow them through the process. Don't drop them off at a facility, get them a bed, and then you're done with it. You don't wash their hands, because it's a process. It could be years before somebody can overcome the ties to addiction, and even then it's always there.
Well, and some of the most efficacious programs you see are with mothers who come in voluntarily once they've gotten pregnant, and they need to get off opioids and they can do this in a healthy manner. It is not easy, but and it has to be very closely medically monitored. But what they see is high rates of success when those mothers get off while they're pregnant. You see a very low return rate of those mothers going back to addiction and all of that. So that's one of the things. And we don't simply have enough beds of those in Mississippi to really help those mothers that want to get help proactively.
I got to tell you, it seems like there are never enough beds anywhere in the country, and that's alarming.
Yeah. So we've got a lot of infrastructure to build within the state to really support and make sure that we can do this. This money will be a great help. We've got a good team. And I really do like the process that we've set up with the legislature. We played with it for a long time. And I think it's a really good process that will give a check and balance to making sure that we get this money spent the most efficacious as possible.
All right, I know you've probably got a job, but we only got a 5 or 6 minute segment left this hour. Can you stick around for one more?
I can stick around.
State Senator Nicole Akins-Boyd. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
From the Bettable Glass Track.
Wake up. Get up and start your day right with Mornings with Richard Cross here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
It's great to have State Senator Nicole Akins-Boyd here on Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands. You've been a pretty key figure in Medicaid reform. You're a vice chair, I believe, of the Senate Medicaid Committee. Medicaid has not been fully expanded yet in Mississippi. Where do you stand on supporting or not expansion, and what kind of conditions might you advocate for?
Well, I think right now there is an unknown of what's going to really happen in D.C. in regards to this. So you can't really say one way or the other. I will say this, the Senate's position was last time, and I fully am supportive of this, is there was no increase of expansion. And technically kind of what we looked at in the Senate was not really a full expansion. It was really covering those people that are kind of in a gap coverage that are basically that didn't have any type of access to the exchange or were not covered under traditional Medicaid. And so there's a gap right there in the middle. And that's what really the Senate looked at doing. But we didn't. The thing that we were very adamant about is that you had to see a strong work requirement, that this just couldn't be something that if the feds didn't approve that it would go away. And I've been interested in following Arkansas now with what they're proposing over there. And we feel, really strongly that if we're going to offer that type of coverage, you've got to have some type of work requirement. And the work requirement that we had, I felt very good about because it also kind of was a hybrid too, that if you were taking classes, but you're only, employed part-time, those could qualify as well. But we were very interested in really trying to shore up that gap. And that would not have brought us to full expansion with that. It would have just covered those people that are in that gap right now. Because as you know, the exchange covers people that were up to that 100 to, I think it was 128%. They covered those people, but it's those people that were just under that 100% that there's a little bit of a gap in right there. So
where does this need for Medicaid reform intersect with the need for PBM reform in the state?
You've hit the topic this morning. I don't think those two things really interact per se. Maybe they do, but I kind of look at those as kind of two separate issues with that. Look, we know that there is a massive problem right now, what is happening to our local pharmacists across the state, and they are being very much edged out by these PBMs. This is something that really the federal government has failed to act on, and now it's being pushed to the states to do this. And because there's not sunshine in this process. There's
really no transparency in pricing.
There's no transparency, and they are
spread pricing is a major problem across the industry.
Yes, and we do hear our industries coming in and saying, yes, and this is going to cost us so much more money, but it's not been a transparent process. And so there needs to be transparency. And I was greatly disappointed this year that we could not get at least some transparency aspect to what is going on. I thought that was just a small step that we could have taken to really see what we could do to really understand this issue more, because I think there's a lot about this issue still, as much as we talk about it, that we don't have all the facts on. And I thought that at least if we could have gotten that transparency piece in place, we could have really had a better knowledge base on what we were doing. And the transparency...
Well, and that's the problem, not just for you in the legislature to try to figure out how to handle the problem, but as consumers, we have absolutely zero transparency from the healthcare industry.
Exactly. And so that was a piece, the transparency was something that everybody agreed to. So you didn't have really strong opposition on that transparency piece. But in the politics of it all, once again, that transparency piece got left on the table, and it's got left on the table 2 years in a row. And so that's super frustrating as a legislator, because you want to try to govern, you want to try to pass laws with the most information as possible, because you know that you're going to make better laws with regards to that. And leaving that transparency piece on the table was just something that was greatly disappointing to me. As we go back through, and this issue will come up again, and yet we still don't have all the information we really need. But what I do know is my hometown and my independent pharmacists are withering on the vine right now because
are there? Yeah, we're short on time here. Are there any states that Mississippi could model that have done PBM reform successfully?
Well, I think everybody's kind of got, I'm not going to say anybody's, quote, successful at this point in time. Right. I think every state has a number of different things, and you'll hear somebody say that a state is good, and then you start digging into it, and it's really not that good. So I think there's a lot to learn. I still think, but it is going to be an issue that we're going to bring back next year, and we're going to try to see what we can do to make sure we get better options in our state.
I'm not a conspiracy guy, but I certainly think that there is some truth, if not at a state level, and I can't speak specifically to Mississippi, but at the federal level, from big pharma money and lobby money that's preventing some of these needed reforms from actually taking place.
I don't think you have to be a conspiracist to think that. I think that's just calling it like it is. So
common sense.
Exactly. So if they wanted us, I don't think you have to be. I'm not going to call you a conspiracist on that one this morning, Scott. So
State Senator Nicole Akins-Boyd, it's great to meet you. Thank you so much for coming in. I'd love to continue this conversation, and I'll text you if you want to hear more about the DART unit.
I want to hear a lot more about it. I want to interview you. So thank you.
We'll talk soon. News is next.
You're waking up to what's happening. Mornings with Richard Cross. Right now on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Thanks for letting me hang out with you this morning. I'm Scott Sands in for Richard Cross. You're on SuperTalk Mississippi, everywhere at supertalk.fm. Later this hour, Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, who is Assistant to the President, Special Presidential Envoy for Russia and Ukraine, will join us, and we'll talk about the weekend attack and whether or not there can be peace and what America's role in that peace process should be. But first, from SuperTalk Mississippi News, Kelly Bennett is joining me, and she will now read the results from all 200 elections across the state yesterday.
I heard you talk about that first thing this morning. You're like, we could go over the elections, but it's 200 municipalities. We'll be here for like 3 hours. So, no.
The one I was watching last night was the Gulfport mayoral race, and I gave up on it around midnight. I know Hugh Keating claimed victory just in time for the late-night newscasts, which is always a smart thing to do strategically, and looks like he did pull off the victory by, I think, about 800 votes.
You lasted longer than me. I finally gave up on that race around 10:30. I was like, the guys will get it. I'll get it in the morning. But
well, in my defense, I took a nap and couldn't fall asleep.
That race was so intense. Okay, So let's go over what happened in this Gulfport mayoral race. The Mississippi GOP accused Williams Barnes' campaign of buying votes by providing meal vouchers to residents who cast in-person absentee ballots. And I mean, the Mississippi GOP went out and took video of this, and she claimed it wasn't happening. So maybe it wasn't her per se that was doing it. Maybe it was somebody else, because they did have some out-of-state money coming in, you know. And then you had the Mississippi Democratic Party. They found and condemned a letter that was sent to employees of Island View Casino by the managing partner, Rick Carter, that voiced support for Keating. And then you think all that's done and it's election day. No. Then there's a social media post yesterday where somebody got online and started telling residents in Harrison County that didn't live in Gulfport city limits to vote in the Gulfport mayoral race. So they ended up having this long... It was crazy. You can't. But what happened is, here's how the Secretary of State's office handled that. They're like, look, we're not going to turn away any voters. So as long as they were in line by 7 o'clock, they could cast their affidavit ballot. But they're going to look. And so all these votes, if you're not in Gulfport city limits, that's not the way it works. You can't vote in Gulfport unless you're in the city limits. So the clarification was sent out on social media. It's just been, that's been a long race. I'm glad that one's over.
So Hugh Keating has won the mayoral race in Gulfport. It looks like the votes are pretty official. It would take a lot of these affidavit ballots to be counted to change the outcome now. Is there a reason? Right. Is Gulfport notoriously slow in counting votes? Because the Biloxi mayoral race, the Jackson race, were all called hours ahead of that.
No, I think it was just so close and they went ahead and included the absentee ballots, but Keating ended up with 6,902 votes, which is 53.2%, and Barnes had 6,073. And because it's been such a contentious race, I'm willing to bet they just took their time to make sure they got it right before they made the announcement.
And that's the smart thing to do. No real surprise. It looked like Andrew Gillich in Biloxi won pretty easily, and he had two other candidates in that race. So that city race is done, and a lot of focus around the state on the Jackson mayoral election as well.
Yeah, you had State Senator John Horn receiving 67% of the vote. He defeated 4 independent challengers. And, you know, I'm looking at some of the mayoral races from around the state, and I'll give you a rundown here in a minute. But it was really a good night for Democrats, even though we're a red state. So there are a lot of
I saw that, and candidates. I think that's why so much outside money came into the Gulfport race, is that the Democrats have been looking for opportunities around the country to be able to claim victory in a red city, a red county, a red state, to try to build any sort of momentum and story going into the midterms. And they failed in Gulfport. They failed in some other places, but there were some surprising Democrat victories across Mississippi.
Yeah, one of those for me would be Vicksburg, where Democrat Willis Thompson unseated incumbent independent George Flaggs. Now, Flaggs used to be a Democrat, but he switched his party a few years ago. In Laurel, incumbent Democrat Johnny McGee defeated 3 independent candidates. In Horn Lake, Democrat Jimmy Stokes defeated Republican Danny Klein. In Greenwood, Democrat Kendrick Cox unseated the incumbent independent Carolyn McAdams. In Gaucher, this was a pretty big battle between these two. Incumbent independent Casey Vaughn defeated Republican Phil Torgeson. In Starkville, I don't think this one's a big surprise. Incumbent Democrat Lynn Spruill defeated Roger Bassett. In McGee, you had the Republican defeating the independents, Mark Grubbs in McGee. Clarksdale, Orlando Payton, the Democrat defeated 2 independent candidates. Rolling Fork, Etheridge Walker, an independent, defeated other independents, Anthony White and Angela Hall Williams. Do what?
What's his name? What is his name? That might be the greatest name I've ever heard.
Etheridge Walker.
Oh, okay. I thought there was more to his name.
No, the name of the town is Rolling Fork.
Okay.
You thought the new mayor was named Rolling Fork. Okay.
Although Etheridge Walker is a great name for a politician.
It is a great name. I had a friend when I was growing up, and he was about to have a daughter. And what he did before he picked his daughter's name, he put Judge in front of it. Like, if it sounds good, so Judge Etheridge Walker, you know.
Doctor.
Anyway, that was kind of funny. Yeah. Let's see. What else do we have?
Other than Vicksburg, were there any major surprises?
No, not for me. I think Vicksburg was the big surprise. You had Moss Point, the incumbent Billy Knight, defeating the Republican candidate there. No surprise. I think this is his third term. Don't quote me on that. There were a couple of things that weren't mayoral races that were kind of big.
Yes, can you now buy booze in Pearl? That's the important question.
You can. They voted in favor of the liquor referendum, so now they'll have wine and liquor sales in the city. We'll see which business leader opens the first liquor store, right?
Right. That's a big announcement. Pearl is now a wet city. The rest of the county dry, but you can now buy booze, you can buy wine and liquor in Pearl. Thank goodness.
Isn't it weird when you drive through a state? I travel a lot because my family all live out of state. And you'll be driving through a town and you'll want a beer for when you get there, you know, and there are some towns that don't sell beer in Georgia where my dad lives. And they'll look at you like, why are you asking for beer, you crazy woman? Like, everybody knows this is a dry county. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm from Mississippi. I didn't know that.
Well,
Richmond.
And in some places you can't buy it on Sundays, which is always odd.
Right.
Want to lay by the pool and have a beer.
True,
can't buy it on a Sunday. I got to plan ahead.
In Ridgeland, voters approved a temporary sales tax increase. This is going to fund an expansion of Freedom Ridge Park. It's a 2% tax on hotels and a 1% increase on restaurants within the city limits. And this was a big vote of support, 1,364 to 473. What they're hoping is this large-scale expansion of the park will bring in really big, large-scale regional and national sports events like baseball, softball, soccer tournaments, and boost tourism revenue. And the neat thing about it, because sometimes you see these increases come into play and they never go away, these tax increases will be phased out once the project is fully funded.
Yeah, it helps add into the travel ball scam and bring some of that revenue in. We're talking to Kelly Bennett. Kelly, before we're out of time, has there been any word from the Secretary of State's office on the Gulfport mayoral race? If anybody knowingly cast a ballot that they shouldn't have been able to cast in the Gulfport race, will there be any prosecution, or they're just going to tear those ballots up?
They'll just throw them out if it's not right, and they're checking because they know what the situation was. So if you're not a Gulfport registered voter, your ballot's not going to count. They'll just toss it out, which is state law. That's how it works.
That's makes sense. Kelly Bennett, you can get all of the election results, all of the insight at supertalk.fm. It's great to see you. Thanks for coming in. Get a nap. Election is done. Got a few days of relax. Talk soon. Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg joins me later this hour on Super Talk Mississippi. It's Mornings with Richard Cross.
The Venable Glass traffic.
Waking up Mississippi. From South Haven to Scuba, it's Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
Somebody told me when I first got to Nashville,
So I'm going to try to get some of the winners of yesterday's election on with us tomorrow morning. I sent a text, Lance. This is so embarrassing. I'm surprised as many text threads as I have going on at any given time. I sent a message intended for Alex to Hugh Keating yesterday.
Nice.
Luckily, it wasn't anything bad, but I had sent a text to Hugh Keating to say, hey, you want to come on the radio with us in the morning if you win the election? I'm not trying to jinx anything, but if you're available, let's talk after the election. And he said, let's follow up later. He didn't want to lock anything down, which is completely understandable. And I sent that back to Alex, saying he's going to pass for tomorrow, which is understandable. We'll try to get him Thursday if he wins, or whatever I said. But instead of sending that to Alex, I sent it to Hugh.
I love it when I do that. You got a message you mean for somebody, and it happens to go to the last text that you had open. It wasn't the right person. Oh man, I hate the oopsie daisy, wrong person. My bad.
I have started putting emojis on some people's names in my phone, like red flags, so I don't accidentally send. But now, if everybody's got an emoji next to their name, then they're all meaningless.
Yeah, I've made that mistake too many times. Yeah, too many times. I've pulled that one.
I mentioned the story earlier. There's been a lot of attention. The Trump administration wants to restrict the number of Chinese students who can attend colleges and universities in the U.S. And if you'll recall, under the Biden administration, there was an alarming number of Chinese illegal immigrants crossing from our southern border as well. This story is why it's alarming. A Chinese scientist apparently entered America last year with a toxic fungus stashed in his backpack. And yesterday, the Department of Justice filed charges against him and a girlfriend who worked at a lab at the University of Michigan. I'm not going to try to pronounce the name of the pathogen, the fungus, but this thing is pretty serious. It's a bioweapon. It can attack wheat, barley, maize, rice, can sicken livestock, attack people's liver, and it could be an agro-terror weapon if it got loose. The Department of Justice saying the alleged actions of these Chinese nationals, including a loyal member of the Chinese Communist Party, are of the gravest national security concerns. He is in jail awaiting a bond hearing tomorrow. No real comment from this. He initially claimed ignorance about the samples, but later said he was planning to use the material for research. Nothing could possibly go wrong.
Yeah,
but there were obviously some messages and some alarming ties. One of these in particular was, once this is done, everything else will be easy. I'm not sure what exactly that means. We don't have an extradition treaty with China, which makes this arrest unlikely unless the other person involved in this case chooses to return on their own.
It kind of reminds me of
that's an alarming case.
Yeah, it reminds me of the first National Lampoons. He said, "Come give your grandma a kiss." I wouldn't do that. That boy's got a lip fungus. He ain't identified yet. And it's just like goodness
from Vacation.
Yeah, I mean, it never ceases to amaze you.
Snots.
You got Snots too. Yeah, he's just in there yakking up a bone. Yeah, but it never ceases to amaze me that people come here to get an education like they do. Yeah, and we've obviously got great universities, but you have people like this that are. I mean, what's the point? You want to sneak in something?
Take advantage of it.
Yeah, take advantage of it. I mean, it's one bad apple spoils the bunch.
There may be valid research that's need to be done, but you don't sneak the fungus that if it got loose could destroy acres of crops and livestock and affect humans and could be potentially more deadly and more destructive economically than COVID-19. This story getting a lot of attention because, I'm sure everybody's aware it's Pride Month, and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has declared woke dead in the U.S. military yesterday, proposing the renaming of the U.S. naval vessel, the Harvey Milk, to something else. I don't know a lot about Harvey Milk. I didn't watch the movie. I know he was an LGBTQ activist and I believe the first openly gay member of city government in San Francisco. I may be getting some of that wrong, but only served. There's really no tie to that. And I'm not one to judge who the naval vessels should be named after. He served in the Navy for 4 years, but there have also been a lot of allegations about Harvey Milk and some of his more unsavory activity. So now, instead of Harvey Milk, possible names to replace Harvey Milk on that vessel, they're proposing possibly Harriet Tubman, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and several others as potential names to replace Harvey Milk. Obviously, the uproar is that the announcement was made at the beginning of Pride Month. If we're going to name these vessels, I understand recognizing important people. I was embedded aboard the USS George H.W. Bush aircraft carrier for a week, and some great men and women serving aboard that vessels. But maybe, we should project more strength and name these ships something like the USS Vengeful Spirit or the USS Iron Blood, Invincible Reason.
I'm not
something
sure
that would have a more chilling effect if you came across it on radar.
Well, I mean, I don't understand, quite frankly, why we want to name a vessel after somebody's sexual preference. The person, why is that a big deal?
No,
why
because that was part of the Biden activism.
Why is that even relevant to anything? Why is it even important who you? Yeah, why, I mean, the world's bizarre, isn't it? I mean, we're in a bizarre world.
And I don't know that Harriet Tubman or Ruth Bader Ginsburg, even if they made remarkable contributions to society or culture and America, let's name the naval vessels after warriors.
Yeah, how about we do it after
that image?
Exactly. Why not we honor those that have actually put their life on the line serving this country, and potentially, hey, pick somebody from the dang Navy. I'm sure there's plenty of generals and people over 200 years that you could probably find a better name that is more representative of the spirit of what these young men and women have to go through.
Harvey Milk served 4 whole years in the Navy, and I'm sure served admirably. Meanwhile, Michael Moore, trying to maintain any sort of relevance, has proposed changing the words to the U.S. Pledge of Allegiance.
Give it to Michael Moore to be a cuckoo.
This is the proposed new pledge. I pledge allegiance to the people of the United States of America and to the democracy for which we all stand, one person, one vote, one nation, part of one world, everyone, a seat at the table, everyone, a slice of the pie, with liberty and justice, equality and kindness, and the pursuit of happiness for all.
And I thought you were going to say a piece of pizza there at the beginning. I mean, knowing him.
I think Michael Moore has had plenty of pizza and plenty of slices of pie.
I pledge allegiance to the pizza. I mean, that's about what I would expect from him.
No, this is going to go nowhere, but it is an obvious attempt for attention from Michael Moore, I think. Also today, economic news, President Trump doubling down on steel and aluminum tariffs starting today. The tax on imported metals will jump to 50%, twice of what it was yesterday. The president announced the latest in this trade war offensive while visiting a steel plant outside Pittsburgh. It goes into effect today. President Trump saying it will even further secure the steel industry in the United States. The higher tariffs will likely provide a boost for domestic companies that do produce steel and aluminum, but for every steel worker in America, there are about 80 people working for companies that use steel, and their costs may go up. So it's unknown what that ripple effect will be down the line. About a quarter of all steel used in the U.S. is imported, the largest portion of that coming from Canada, Mexico, and other allies. So we'll have to watch and see what that could potentially do to the construction industry. But certainly if it increases steel, aluminum manufacturing in the U.S., it means a lot for jobs. And if you're making it, if you're buying that product domestically, then you really don't have anything to worry about. So that could be good, but there could be increased costs short term. We'll keep an eye on that story as the stock market here opens momentarily. Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg joins me next. We'll talk about peace efforts and if there can be peace or if we should just wash our hands of the whole deal between Ukraine and Russia. Next year, Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. And again, if you didn't get the election results you were looking for when Kelly Bennett was on with us a few minutes ago, you can get all the results online at supertalk.fm.
Or just text Scott. He has all 200 of them ready to go.
Yeah,
PDF.
I know the 5 I watched, and that was about it.
Yeah, no, your PDF work is excellent, man. Good job.
Thanks.
Oh, no, you don't stand, no, stand everything but a midnight. My big don't stand, no, my big don't stand, no, my big. Oh, no, she don't stand, no, my big. Oh, no, you don't stand, no, she stand everything but a midnight sneaking. My big don't stand, no,
From the Seabrook Paint Doc.
Want to know what's happening in Mississippi politics?
Yes.
You're in the right place. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Great to be here this morning as your substitute teacher for Richard. He'll be back on Monday. My name is Scott Sands, and you can find me on X, Scott Sands Media. My next guest this morning is a true American hero, former chief of staff to the National Security Council, author of War by Other Means, a general in the Trump White House, and now President Trump's special envoy to Ukraine and Russia, General Keith Kellogg. General, thank you for your time, sir.
Hey, Scott, thanks for having me on. Good to be with you again.
So how has the weekend attack on Russia's nuclear fleet by Ukraine affected the trajectory of peace talks between these two countries?
Yes, Scott. First of all, it was a pretty courageous move, militarily speaking. We were thinking real outside the box. Because what they did is they used, every age has its own style of war. And you're seeing this, a new age of warfare, drone warfare, that they've really perfected. And they use that against strategic assets, something we haven't seen before. So militarily, I give them full credit for what they did because, again, it was a pretty out-of-the-box thinking move to do that using what they're really good at, which is drone technology. And it should send a signal to all of us that the vulnerabilities are there with drones. I mean, both my youngest kids have got drones. They fly them all the time. So it's really not a hard asset to fly. And then you put a weapons system on it, and it becomes really a pretty lethal asset.
And using artificial intelligence as well. Does this targeting of Russia's nuclear fleet, of the nuclear triad, alter the balance of power in this conflict and also a potential conflict between the U.S. and Russia?
Well, I think what it does, it shows that there's a vulnerability there. The vulnerability is how they basically place those assets. We do the same thing, by the way. If you went and looked at any of our major bases that have our B-52s, they're all on the fight line because under the treaty, you've got to have those assets visible for overhead surveillance. So to let them know, in other words, if you did an overhead look and the flight lines were clear of aircraft, then the concern would obviously be raised up. So by doing what they did, sent a pretty clear message to anybody who even follows national security. And again, it was militarily speaking, it was really out of the box thinking.
And it shows their ability to strike deep within Russian territory. Did you know? Did the president know in advance about this attack?
I really can't comment on that because I don't know. Because if he had been, he may have tried to wave it off. But I don't know, Scott, because I don't know what he was briefed by the intelligence community, by the director of the CIA or anybody else that was out there. I don't know if they even picked up on it. Obviously, I think it caught everybody a little bit off guard. I don't think anybody was prepared for it. And that's a credit to their intelligence community as well. I mean, their ability to protect information is very important. We'd say the same thing about us. You don't want to let any of that information get out.
Right. But does it say anything about the level of trust and coordination in our relationship with Ukraine? And would you, with your involvement in the peace talks, have any concerns about Senator Lindsey Graham's visit, which seemed to be an odd coincidence on the timing and maybe the purpose of that visit? Is he interfering with the peace talks?
Well, I don't fault Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham has been a large advocate for Ukraine anyway, and he's got this bill he's called the RSA 2025, Russian Sanctions Act 2025, that he's pushing pretty hard, which are pretty significant sanctions. And he's always been a very vocal advocate. So I'm not surprised by it at all. And I don't think it hurt Lindsey at all.
So based on your engagements, do you think that these two countries are genuinely committed to achieving any sort of peace? We can continue to see Russia's attacks on civilian population in Ukraine. We saw the attack this past weekend in Russian territory. Dmitry Peskov has stated that a trilateral meeting with U.S., Russia, and Ukraine is unlikely. I believe that Medvedev has claimed that the Istanbul talks are designed for peace, but aren't designed for peace, but to achieve a swift Russian victory and destroy Zelensky's government. So that's pretty hardline talk from Russia, at least.
Yeah, it is. And they came in when they came into Istanbul, they had their sheet. They called it a memorandum, which was maximalist. In other words, they basically demanded the surrender of Ukraine. And when you looked at what the Ukrainians came in with, they were much more balanced. They had which I call a reasonable way of looking at the world. And we kind of looked at both of them, put them together, and said, okay, what's manageable and what's realistic? And I think if you do that, you can find, is there any common ground? I happen to think there is. You just have to get both sides to kind of agree to that and understand that both sides are going to have to give a little bit. You know, Scott, if people think you can kill your way out of this war, you really can't. It's going to have to come up, and it always does, with some type of diplomatic solution. And that's what you're going to have to come up with.
And I think that's what President Trump has charged you with. We're talking to General Keith Kellogg here on Mornings with Richard Cross. I think it's inevitable that Ukraine will have to cede some territory, Crimea, Donbass, as part of a peace deal. If they do agree to those concessions, do you think Putin would be satisfied with that, or is there a risk that he's going to demand even more territory in the future?
Well, you never know with Putin. You know, he's got maximalist views going forward, but right now, the only two provinces, they call them oblasts. Think of an oblast as a state. The only one they really control is the one to the far north, which is Luhansk, and they also control Crimea. But they don't control the other three, which is, when it comes north to south, it's you got Kherson, you got Zaporizhia, and you got Donetsk. And they don't really control those three 100%. What the Russians want is they want the Ukrainians to withdraw to the administrative lines of the oblasts, which means the Ukrainians would give up land that the Russians have not been able to capture. And I don't think Ukrainians will go there. And I think if they look at that, they'll look at that as a total surrender. I don't think they can afford that.
So this is kind of a policy question you may not be able to answer. Is it in our best interest and the U.S. best interest to prioritize defending Ukraine's sovereignty, or should the focus be on just brokering a deal that ends the conflict quickly, even if it compromises their territorial integrity?
Well, I think you have to look at this in the grand scheme of things. In other words, you have to look at this geostrategically. You know, now this is the first time we've seen this. And President Trump didn't see this and didn't have this in his first term, where you had the Russians aligned quite closely with the North Koreans, with the Chinese, and with the Iranians. Last time we kept them pretty well separate. So in fact, it is a global issue. It's just not a European issue. And you have to think like that. You have to think geostrategically. What does this look like in 3, 4, 5 years down the line? And how does that impact it? Plus, how does this view of how we support Ukraine, or have not, how does that impact us internationally? And I'd kind of ask you and your listeners a question. Do you believe that when Biden left Afghanistan the way he did, Did that help geostrategically the United States or not?
No. No, you and I have had those conversations. I think it demonstrated weakness on the part of the U.S. military and Biden foreign policy and opened the door for Putin to invade Ukraine. And obviously there are a lot of geopolitical questions on the table. I think NATO membership for Ukraine is off the table. That would present a direct conflict with Russia between the United States. So that's off the table. But it seems like economic sanctions have been ineffective so far, although certainly there are stronger sanctions that could be put in place, and not only against Russia, I believe, but we also need to cut off the money coming in from China that's supplying them with the finances and the resources to continue their military operations in Ukraine.
Scott, it's just not sanctions. And I talked with Secretary Bennett recently, and he said if you look at sanctions and you rated them 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, the easiest, 10 being the hardest, he said we're probably at a 6 on sanctions, but he said the importance is we're probably only at a 3 coming into enforcement. I mean, if you've got to have sanctions, you've got to enforce them. Otherwise, they mean nothing. And I think that's a concern everybody has, is how do we enforce the sanctions when they come out?
We've got about 30 seconds here, General. What's the next step in Istanbul? Do you think you're close to being able to improve the dialogue between the two countries?
No, I don't think they're close at all.
Well, President Trump's special envoy to Ukraine and Russia, General Keith Kellogg, his book is War by Other Means, a general in the Trump White House. General, as always, thank you for your time, sir.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me.
It's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi. C-Spire text line is open for your comments, too. 601-879-4395.
Make me a poster of an old rodeo. Just give me one thing that I can hold on to. To believe in this living is just a hard way to go.
From the Venable Glass Traffic.
Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi. Welcome to the show.
Woke up this morning.
Scott Sands in for Richard Cross. Everywhere at supertalk.fm, and you can find me on X at Scott Sands Media. Lance just sent me a couple of interesting posts from X. The U.S. Army has surpassed its fiscal year 2025 recruiting goal 4 months ahead of schedule, signing contracts with 61,000 future soldiers. That's fantastic, and I think it's a testament to the change in culture under Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth for some of the reasons that we were just talking about earlier, getting rid of some of the woke nonsense. And this is alarming. I'm sure I'll talk about this tomorrow morning. Senator Tom Tillis is considering dropping President Trump's no tax on tips from the big, beautiful bill. Again, Congress refusing to do what we wanted.
I mean, and it says, well, maybe there's a different way we can achieve the goal. Well, I mean, what other way is there? Just don't tax tips.
It's pretty simple. It's 4 words. No tax on tips.
How hard can
you
you
don't need to make it a 1,000-page bill. No tax on tips, period. Sign the bill.
And as a Republican.
It should just be that simple. And look, there are problems in this bill. We talked about the spending cuts that need to be made. I agree with Elon Musk on this. But most importantly, let's make sure that the tax cuts are extended, that there are no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security benefits, everything that we voted for. You can do them all at once if you stop going on 11-day vacations. That's at the end of the day, that just do your job, do what we sent you to D.C. to do.
Yeah, but those weekend
homes,
you're
putting the whole midterms at risk.
Yeah, those weekend homes got to be lived in, though. And, you need 11 days in those just to get your money's worth. So
every member of Congress should be forced to stay in their office. My friend Congressman Bob Latta has a cot. So I think he showers in the congressional gym, lives in the Actually, I think he may share an apartment with his daughter now that she lives in D.C. But let's just force them to work as hard as Elon Musk tried to work for free. And all the criticism that he took at the cost to his own business and companies. That's real devotion. And I'm not always an Elon Musk fan either, but I think he demonstrated that he wanted to do the job that we sent him to D.C. to do.
Hey, man, I'm all for putting a time clock at the door of every congressman, and at least at least knowing when they have office hours. When is this?
Right.
And I don't mean that seriously, but yes, we need the people representing the hardworking Americans to work just as hard for those Americans as we're working for them.
When Congress goes on recess, they should have to fill out a request in Workday, and a constituent, should have to approve it or not.
That's real world, isn't it? Have a committee of 20 people. Like, no, we're not letting you take that vacation.
Just approve the Workday request or not. If not, you have to stay and do your job. I think school is generally out just about everywhere in the state now, and this story has gone viral this week. Maybe you've seen it. Should kids be able to skip the last day or the entire last week of school? Patricia Horton is a mom in Florida. She's viral on TikTok now. She's got kids who are 7 and 12 years old. Listen to what she had to say, Lance.
Do you make your kid go to school the last day of school? Do you make your kid go to school the last week of school? I don't make my kids go to school the last couple of days of school. I don't see the point. Most of the teachers would rather you keep your kids home anyway, at least around here. My parents, they made us go to school every single day, all the way to the very last day of school every year. I have cleaned a lot of desks. That is what we did the last week of school when I was a kid. So what was the point of sending me to school on the last few days of school? But I'm not doing that with my kids. Stay home, baby. It's summertime. Time to go.
So parents are arguing in the comment section, because that's what people do, is argue in the comment section. I understand her point, especially if all the testing is done. There's not much left to do. But I think from the kids' perspective, that's probably the best day to go to school. You get to hang out with your friends and have a couple of days of fun before you may go your separate ways in the summer.
Well, those days get wild, the last couple of days of school. Yeah, I mean, and you want to see all your buddies.
Field days, mud runs, splash pads, movies, whatever. But and the point should be made, why shouldn't your kid help to clean the mess that they made the entire school year?
No, I have no problem with that.
So
get out the mops and brooms on the last day, right? Let's winterize this baby for the summer.
All right, so maybe I don't have time to do this story. I'll save this maybe to wrap up my week filling in for Richard Cross on Friday. So we'll save the audio from this. Let me just give you the headline. A woman claims her ex-boyfriend's fart gave her a 7-year sinus infection.
Ooh,
that's really all you need to know.
You get broken up over that kind of stuff.
Right?
If that relationship lasted, that's a testament to her olfactory senses, huh?
There may be a legitimate medical evidence to her claim as well, which I find fascinating in this story. Your municipal election results. If you missed Kelly Bennett on with us earlier, you can find out who won where. All of the 200-plus elections that took place across the state yesterday, available at supertalk.fm. Be back tomorrow morning, 6 to 9, filling in for Richard Cross. Lance, thank you for everything. Alex and Cammy and everybody else that helps. I appreciate everything. And really am grateful for the invitation to sit in for Richard. I'm sure I'll hear from you, Lance, later in our text thread later. Meanwhile, have a great Wednesday. And you can find me on X at Scott Sands Media. Back tomorrow morning.
And a short time to get there. I'm eastbound up. Watch our bandit run.
SuperTalk Mississippi Media Production.